I'm going to ring the bell so you'll be officially convened. So my dear friends, a very, very heartfelt welcome to you. Please know your presence is truly a blessing. And now we'll do some wonderful invocations. Reverend Karen Lindquist.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming. It's so nice that we can gather in person, isn't it? And let's just take a moment to feel our own heartbeat and feel the heartbeat of others in the room together. Just take a moment. Thank you. Bringing ourselves to our heart space is very important because it centers us, but it also opens our heart to be receptive of what's happening in the moment and what's happening within us and outside of us and around us. And as we sit here in contemplation of our heart, we know that there's a vibration that happens that influences the neighborhood, the city, and the world. So moment to moment, remind yourself to think about your heart and how it's feeling, how it's paying attention, and how it is receptive. We have a couple of rituals we often do on our Sunday mornings, and one of those is calling in our ancestors. So also as you drop into your heart, recall all of those who came before us, those we are related to, and those human beings and creatures who lived on the earth before us and lived in the universe and lived, which is the key. Life. And we bring them into our consciousness and we bless them. And we bless ourselves. And we send that blessing into the future to those we know, those we do not yet know. We send blessings of healing, light, and love from our heart to the world. So as we continue in creating our sacred space through a few of these rituals, we know that our ancestors, teachers and guides, those who have come before us, have become present if they're available. So we can feel in our room a vibration of those who built this place, those whose land this was built upon, and those who have stewarded this historic building all these years, including us. So also take a moment and imagine to remember the first peoples who lived on this land before the settlers came. Let's just take a moment and appreciate our land, the peoples of the land, and the water systems that we are blessed to have, that they were such good caretakers of, and we are learning to be caretakers of the land and the water as well. So take a moment. there is a story about this building in this location here in the Northwest, the land of the Coast Salish people. And one of those stories includes this fact or oral history that some of the lumber in this building came from some of the longhouses in the area. Not that the entire story is beautiful, but some of the story is beautiful. Because an elder told us this story that when many of the longhouses were being burned down, it's because they were considered diseased by the settlers here, that this particular community received the lumber from an existent longhouse. And that was some of the lumber that built this building. We can't authenticate this, but this is an elder shared us this story. And it makes for another level of intimacy, doesn't it? That this happened, and that someone had this thought, and someone had this wish, and somebody was receptive to receive. So may we learn from these teachings. Then one more sacred ritual that we do to create our sacred space here is to honor the divine feminine. And I have a simple reading to share with you from Andrew Harvey. And it's about Mother Mary. So take a moment to collect yourself about your motherhood, your mother's motherhood, all of creation's birthing capacity. And we'll hear these words. All of the powers of all the world's mothers, Tara, Durga, Kali, Kali of the Tao, are in Mary. All of the powers of all the world's mothers, Tara, Durga, Kali of the Tao, are in Mary. She has Tara's sublime protectiveness towards all creation, Durga's inaccessible silent face and grandeur, and terribleness of Kali. The infinite awareness of balance and mystery of the Tao. The miracle of Mary and the source of her extraordinary hold over the human heart, however, is that she was a human mother, a mother who endured every imaginable anguish and so shares all of the griefs with an intensity and an intimacy no purely divine mother can. In Mary, then, we have a complete image of the divine feminine, an image at once transcendent and immanent, otherworldly and thisworldly, mystical and practical. So one of the spiritual practices that is recommended to understand the divine feminine is whoever you know who exhibits, manifests, shares divine motherhood should be respected as if she is the divine feminine, the source, the Mary. So think of your life of the people you know and those who embody that heart, the heart of Mary, the heart of the divine feminine. And truly that is our heart. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Reverend Karen, for your very heartfelt sharing. My dear friends, let's just take a few moments to allow whatever has been articulated to, as the mystics say, to perfume our hearts. And now I'd like to invite my colleague and dear friend, Steve Kramer, to play this wonderful flute music. You can sit here, Karen. Maybe we can all go like this. Thank you so much, Brother Steve. You know, there's a wonderful saying by this 13th century sage Rumi, who, as you know, did not write, would just go into a trance and exclaim, "Music is the sound of the spheres." And we have been a part of this harmony before. And all these songs and music keeps our remembering fresh. So once again, my friends, a very, very heartfelt welcome to you, the ones who are present here and those who are on cyberspace, wherever you are. So my friends, being a chant junkie, we never miss an opportunity to do a chant together. So let's chant Allahu Allah, knowing that when we praise God, God doesn't become holy, we become holy. Allahu Allah, Allahu Allah, Allahu Allah, Allahu Allah, Allahu Allah, Allahu Allah. Just the beloved women, please. Just the beloved men. Allahu Allah, Allahu Allah. Whole family. Allahu Allah, Allahu Allah. Once quietly. Allah. twice aloud. Allahu Allah, Allahu Allah, Allahu Allah, Allahu Allah. And becoming very still and being open to what is called the glow of presence. Thank you, my friends. Now I see in front of me Sister Bilgehan with Sister Susan. They returned recently from this holy pilgrimage to Mecca and Medina. So their presence is perfuming us with that sense of the sacred. And Sister Bilgehan does wonderful ilahis. Ilahi means divine. And these are beautiful poetry rendered into song that embodies the spiritual culture, philosophy of Islam. And this has been happening ever since there was printing, and the entire legacy of this spirituality is carried, conveyed in these beautiful ilahis. So maybe an ilahi, you do it in Turkish. Please, if you want to come up here. Yeah, you can. Okay, wherever you want to. You can sit down.
Thank you. That's okay. Bismillah. Allahümme salli alel Mustafa hu nebiyyer risale bahr-ı safa hu çırağı mescid mihrab-ı minber hu Ebu Bekir Ömer Osman ya Hayder Hak hu Allahümme salli alel Mustafa hu nebi yerisa leve bahr-ı safa hu çırağı mescid mihrab-ı minber hu Ebu Bekir Ömer Osman ya Hayder.
We can go like this if you like. And just be in silence for a few moments. And I'd love to, when we're in silence, just remind you those wonderful insights about silence. Silence is not the absence of sound. It is the absence of the little self, the I, me, me. The second one by Rumi is silence is the language of God. Everything else is a poor translation. Therefore, he says, be silent so that the Lord who gave you language may speak. For as he fashioned a door and a lock, she also made a key. So just some moments of silence. Thank you, my friends. So today I wanted to talk, I hope briefly, about rekindling our interest in this global organization called the Charter for Compassion. Some of you remember that? It does some very unique work in building network upon network upon network to really, in a global way, infuse, create the culture of compassion in our individual lives and in the lives of our institutions. It has its roots in the year 2008, when Karen Armstrong, she won the TEDx Prize and she launched the Charter for Compassion. And then soon after that, some of you will remember, the Dalai Lama came to Seattle. And there's also Desmond Tutu. Some of you here, I can see, we had breakfast with him when he and Desmond Tutu spoke. We were just a few feet away. That was a marvelous occasion. And then 2010, Seattle became the first city of compassion in the world. Today, I believe there are hundreds of cities, right? Cities of compassion all over the world. So Charter for Compassion is a global organization. And I'd like all of us to get involved actively. So I will talk about this divine attribute, compassion, mercy, gentleness, especially through an Islamic lens. And my colleague here will briefly talk about how I and you can be involved in the programs of Charter for Compassion. Okay, so let me start by saying that the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, he said, the entire wisdom, spiritual wisdom of Islam is in the Quran. The entire wisdom of the Quran is in the Surah Fatiha. That's the first chapter of the Quran, which many of you know by heart. In fact, let's recite it. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Oh, I'm singing the song. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Ar-Rahmanir-Rahim. Maliki Yawmiddin. Iyaka na'budu wa iyaka nasta'in. Ihdina as-sirat al-mustaqim. Sirat al-lazina an'amta alayhim. غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين Ameen. And then Prophet Muhammad said the entire wisdom of the Surah Fatiha is embodied in the Basmallah. What is the Basmallah? Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, which opens virtually each of the 114 chapters of the Quran. So a Bedouin asked the Prophet Muhammad, how can the Basmallah be bestowed upon me? What is the secret of Basmallah? And the Prophet Muhammad replied, it's simply this. Have compassion on yourself and have compassion on others. Just be with that. That is a secret to life, to live a life of contentment, fulfillment, joy. Compassion for myself and compassion for others. And how does one explain the beauty, the power, the majesty of this divine attribute? Mercy, gentleness, compassion. In Islam, as also other traditions, they use the metaphor of, some of you know, of water. Something we're familiar with in the Northwest. So the first insight is, there is nothing as soft and yielding as water is. There's nothing as soft and yielding as water is, yet for overcoming the hardest, the most insurmountable, there's nothing as powerful as water is. Meaning the person who is gentle, merciful, compassionate, is possessed of authentic strength, raw strength. Then the second insight is in the Quran, other books also, wherever water falls, life flourishes. Wherever water falls, life flourishes. The Quran says, of every created thing, we have made out of water. Which means that the person who is gentle, merciful, compassionate, besides being possessed of genuine strength is also life affirming, life bestowing. So just be with that for a few moments. And what does it mean to be gentle with oneself? You know, the great sages say, Jamal, you have no idea where you've come from, what you're doing here, where you're going. We are steeped, infused in absolute mystery. But you see, we don't become aware of it because we are in this hypnotic trance, struggling, striving to survive or to thrive. We don't realize that actually it is so incredibly bewildering that we know nothing about where we have come from, what we're doing here, and where we are going. You can say, you have answers in the holy books, but no holy book comes with footnotes. We fight over its meaning, over its interpretation. That's why I love the saying of Rumi, we arrive on earth a little bit tipsy. We have no idea what's going on. But then we realize this drunkenness must have started in some other tavern. And there's this wonderful story which we have heard many times, this fictional story of the mullah to illustrate this point. The mullah is in the tavern drinking and drinking and drinking, totally bewildered, and he stumbles out 4 a.m, walking the streets aimlessly. And a policeman accosts him and says, "Sir, who are you? Where did you come from? Where are you going?" And the mullah says, "Sir, if I knew the answer to all those questions, I would be home already." That's one of my favorite insights from, or the utterances of Rumi is, sell your cleverness. Please complete it for me. And buy bewilderment. Sell your cleverness and buy bewilderment. So think of how I can be gentle with myself. I'll just mention 2 techniques which we share in class every time we get together in spiritual classes. One is sacred naming. Have a relationship with yourself based on compassion, based on mercy. So I call myself and I talk to myself, addressing myself as Brother Jamal. So I and Brother Jamal have constant conversations. And you know, this famous Islamic sage Al-Ghazali says, remember this, the tone of the voice you use is sometimes even more important than the content of what you say. The tone of the voice you use, let's say, is equally important as the content of what is said. So develop a relationship with yourself based on mercy, gentleness. Brother Jamal, I say it with compassion, no matter how awkward it feels. And the other one is, meaning compassion for myself, can I be gentle with my difficult feelings? See, the Quran says, Allah says, of everything we have created opposites, so that you may know only Allah is one. Other traditions also, if you study Taoism, high is defined by low, long by short, joy by sorrow. If I want to enjoy food, I must be hungry, be the opposite. So, difficult feelings, just as suffering in the Eastern traditions, particularly Buddhism, they emphasize suffering is inevitable. The question is, how am I responding to my suffering, to my difficult feelings, which I repeat, are inevitable? In different degrees. You know, currently we are going through a class using the book by Desmond Tutu and Dalai Lama called The Book of Joy. Some of you know that book? It's a beautiful book. It's like a bestseller. And in that, both the Christian archbishop and the Buddhist Dalai Lama, they both agree suffering is inevitable. But how you respond to the suffering is what determines your character and also shapes the destiny of your life. So, in Islamic spirituality, there's a insight that since suffering is inevitable, know that it has an edge only because it is separated from me. It is begging to be acknowledged, to be held, to be kissed, to be integrated. So if I do this practice of sacred holding, which I won't get into here, but it is about if I'm feeling angry, of course, restrain yourself, don't do something you'll regret, but immediately ask yourself when you're free, what did I feel? Oh, anger. By the way, the Quran says all feelings come from God, meaning every single feeling, no matter how we name them, is sacred. So this feeling, this process of sacred holding is where am I give myself permission to feel in that process of healing it. Second is, where do I feel it? It has a physical location. Third is, just be present with it. It is begging, as I said, to be kissed. Then you can ask it some questions. Do you have a message for me? Do you have a secret you want to share? And the last question is, how may I love you? And then just breathe through it. So I can tell you with inner certainty, and I've just glossed over a technique which sometimes takes 3 months to master. If I do sacred holding with my anger, it gets transformed, transmuted into an inner enthusiasm, inner vigor. My fear into greater mindfulness. My sadness into greater empathy. And of course, please do not forget the insight of all the great sages. Just because suffering or difficult feelings has lessons to teach you, don't run towards suffering or difficult feelings, just don't run away from them. I love to quote Carl Jung. Many of you know Carl Jung, the Western psychologist who studied many Eastern traditions. He was fond of saying, would you once in your life have the grace and the courage to kiss the demons and dragons within you? That is how they turn into a prince or princess. Okay, that's very critical, compassion for oneself. Then compassion for others. This would mean that, Jamal, if you're meeting an adversary, an opponent, somebody you're angry with, you're angry, you are upset about their behavior. But their being is sacred. You've heard this many times in this same place here, that wonderful quotation by that 15th, 16th century mystic Kabir who says, when dealing with somebody who's adversarial, protect yourself. Don't allow yourself to be abused. Take the right action. But as you take the right action, I beg you, I implore you, I plead with you, please do not keep this person's essence out of your heart. Just this differentiation, discernment, higher understanding through compassion has the power to shift heaven and earth. So now I'm getting into something which is very critical in Islamic spiritual literature, as also other spiritual traditions. If we talk of compassion, it has to be accompanied by higher consciousness, higher awareness. Even the golden rule has to be more deeply understood. If I want for others what I want for myself, if I'm narrow-minded, if my level of consciousness is low, I really will not be able to know what is in the other person's interest. This is the problem with the fervor for conversion. And you've heard this many times. Please listen to this one more time. There was a sincere monkey who used to go to neighborhood lakes or ponds to pluck the fish out of water to save it from a watery grave. I repeat, this requires constant contemplation. There was a sincere monkey who would go to neighborhood ponds or lakes to pluck the fish out of water to save it from a watery grave. If I'm a Muslim, which I am, if I'm narrow-minded, I might be thinking, if every single person in the world became Muslims just like me, and by the way, also a Sunni, and also a Sufi, and also loving Rumi, and only Rumi, then the whole world would be a better place. Not only would this be a boring world, it would be unjust. You know, I remember many years ago when I forget, in the South, I and the Interfaith Amigos, I met this elderly Christian missionary. I think he was over 90 years old. He was saying, you know, Jamal, I want to tell you something. When I was young, I was sent to Africa. And do you know why I was sent to Africa? Because there, the Muslims were so active and so successful in converting the local people to Islam. And I spent 30 years of my life, and shall I say, in sabotaging that, speaking ill of Islam, doing things which are really the province of the ego. And he said, now I've realized in my later years, I wasted those 30 years serving the kingdom of man, my ego. How I wish I had spent my years serving the kingdom of Jesus, the kingdom of heaven. Just be with that for a few moments. Let me just make one more important point, which is so difficult to explain because none of us know why. If compassion is so beautiful, and if we say Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, which literally means in the name of God, who is boundlessly compassionate, infinitely merciful, then why do such terrible things happen to good people? Why do so many innocent people suffer? Just be with that. What is the best answer? I tell you, the best answer is silence. None of us know. So let me end with just a few stories, just to ponder on. A very famous story, again, has been repeated again and again. I love to hear it all the time. There was this pious person, very holy, who travels the world and is so saddened, burdened by what he or she sees, so much of injustice, oppression, cruelty, poverty, terrible things human beings do. And finally, when this holy person sees this little orphan child in the winter cold, no clothes on, starving to death, nobody cares, this person breaks down and gets on his or her knees and says, oh God, God, please do something, do something. You're God, do something. You're compassionate, you're all aware, you're all powerful, do something. And that evening, as you know, a vision comes to this person where God tenderly says, oh beloved one, I did do something. I created you. The other story which I remember I heard when my parents passed away was of this widow. They say it's a true story, I don't know, who lost her husband tragically, and she had two sons. One son died of in an accident, the other one of an illness, and she was so not only wounded, she was so angry at God. Every evening she screamed to God, God, where is your compassion? My husband gone, my children gone. Where is your compassion? One day she had a dream. She had died, and she saw angels escorting her to the, what you call, paradise, Firdaus, it's the highest level of paradise. And as she was entering the highest level of paradise, she was even more excited. She saw her husband and her 2 children greeting and welcoming her. And she burst into tears, and she woke up and she screamed, oh God, my husband was lost. My children were lost to me, but they were never lost to you. Thank you, my Lord. Thank you, my God. Thank you, Allah. The third is not a story, it's an insight. Why do terrible things happen to good people? None of us know really. But I love this spiritual story. See, in the Quran, there's a verse that says, before Allah sent all the human beings to planet Earth, He gathered all the human beings together. But then a tradition goes on to say, God took them to a huge cosmic celestial tree. And on the tree, there were packages of different sizes, some small, some medium, some very large. And God said to the unborn humanity, these are packages of suffering. I'm sending you to earth. It's a world of opposites. There will be suffering. And you are free to choose before you go down to earth whichever package you want to take with you. But the nobler ones among us, in that unborn humanity group, they chose to take the larger packages so others would suffer less. So the great teachers say, when you see somebody suffering again and again and again, don't try to analyze, talk about karma, talk about this. Just be of authentic service with gratitude. Okay, I'm coming to close now. I want to say the best way to understand this is to have your own experience. And I talk about this constantly in my presentations, that in my 3 decades of doing counseling, pastoral conversations, trance work, I have met some people who have been so savaged by life circumstances, rape, incest, murder, daughter being murdered. When they come to me for work, therapy, please, I'm happy to come to you on one condition: never mention God. When I tell them you have permission to express your fury, your gut-wrenching fury with your ultimate beloved, who is God, if you cannot be vulnerable, transparent, able to express yourself with the deepest of emotions, no matter how much it is filled with anger and fury with your ultimate beloved, who can you express it to? And when they have expressed that gut-wrenching fury, sadness, anguish, pain, these same people, after they have done the work of acknowledging their feeling, of healing that wound through those conversations, these people have become the greatest devotees of God. And this has been the most surprising, astonishing phenomena in my life. Those who are so against God, the mention of God, have now become such, shall I say, extreme lovers of God. In fact, I always jokingly say, whenever I meet them, I try to go the other way, because all they talk about is God, 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 you see? It reminds me of the Sufi song in Urdu. It's not my language, it's a language that Muslims speak in Pakistan and some Muslims in India. There's a spiritual song, Allah hame Allah walo se bachaye. Oh God, save me from all these God lovers. So the last thing I want to say, a true story where a Bedouin was asked, do you believe in the all-compassionate God? Do you believe in the all-compassionate God? And the Bedouin says, you mean the all-compassionate God who sent me afflictions, illnesses, poverty, made me wander from country to country to country, but as he spoke, he entered into a state of ecstasy. That's a great mystery. Just be with that for a few moments. And as always, I've spoken longer than I needed to, but here's my brother, Steve Kramer.
Thank you, Brother Jamal. I'd like to share with you more about the Charter for Compassion and why I became involved in it and what it may offer you. I encountered the Charter through World Interfaith Harmony Week 2 years ago in February, and the Charter had some offerings for that week. And I was so enamored by the classes and meditations that I had to check them out. And I've been hooked ever since. They offer different classes, and I found that to be a wonderful way to become engaged. The classes are online and they're very interactive. So while they're led by a facilitator who provides information, prompts readings to the group, if you sign up for a class, what you do is start establishing a dialogue with each other, and you respond to the questions or the videos, and you get to know your fellow classmates. And I have met some very beautiful people through the classes, and I still probably take more classes than I have time for. I know I've taken at least 9 or 10 now in the last 2 years, so I guess I'm hooked. I decided to volunteer with the Charter I was mulling it over for a couple months and volunteered with their, what we call sectors, their environmental sector. And within a month, I was asked if I would be a co-lead for the sector. So I foolishly did that. And that's been helping me meet even more people and the delightful staff at the Charter. And we have a lovely team. The Charter is made up of 12 sectors, and I'll see how many I can remember right now. There's healthcare, religion, interfaith, spirituality of the earth, social justice, restorative justice, education, the sciences, the arts, gender issues, including a really strong group within that is the women's and girls sector. There's the education sector, which focuses on what we can do to help support our young ones who are in school. And all these sectors, they're run by volunteers, usually 1 or 2 volunteers, and we're always in search of more volunteers. One thing Brother Jamal and I will be doing after this gathering is he brought his laptop and I brought my iPad, and we'll open those up. I'm not sure how good a connection I'll get with my iPad, but we'll see. And if any of you are interested in checking out the Charter, we can walk you through the process and take you to the website. And if this intrigues you at all, I would recommend going to the Charter, which is charterforcompassion.org, and that will take you to the front page, which has a connecting link to the Charter itself. And there's also a copy of it that's been posted for years at the entrance of this church. There's also a calendar, and you can look at the calendar to see what the various offerings are. And one thing that we're highlighting right now are the 23 Days of Compassion. In this offering, we have daily things you can engage with, and it's sort of like a game where if you click on the daily offering and you complete it, you get points. You may, if you collect enough points, you may get a t-shirt or hat or something else related to compassion. I have been doing, I've missed a couple days, but I've been doing as many days as I can, and I have found them to be very thought-provoking and sometimes hard to wade through. It's really given me pause into how I relate to compassion and how I try and bring compassion into the world. If you have any interest in finding a supportive community, I cannot recommend the charter and the beautiful people involved. I've made quite a few friends there, even though I've never met in person. I've met them over the airwaves, and they're such lovely people.
All over the world, right?
All over the world. And on our team for the environment, the other co-lead is Alexander from Cameroon, and we have a gentleman, and he's developing a tree nursery to support local communities, and with the idea that the more trees that we plant in this world, the better off the world will be in terms of mitigating climate change. And also the trees that he plants provide food for the communities. It helps them become more self-sufficient. And they're also starting another initiative with building beehives so that families and local communities can start making honey and support their communities through that. They're also trying to substitute honey for white cane sugar, since it's much more healthy for people. The other team members have Paula from Portugal, and the rest of them are from different areas in the United States here. In the other sectors, though, we have people from Southeast Asia, Australia, and England, Netherlands, all around the world. So I would really encourage you to take a look at it. Against charterforcompassion.org, and we will have our electronic devices open afterwards if you'd like to check it out, and we can lead you through the process of connecting. We would love to have you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Brother Steve. So let's just be with it for a few moments. Any questions you have for Brother Steve? When you go downstairs, when the real service starts over beverages and food and fellowship, of course. Just being still for a few moments as we come to a close. So now a short meditation, a familiar one about compassion, self-compassion. Please close your eyes. Focus on your nostril. And simply be present with your in-breath and out-breath. Just this much. And now, letting go of this, with eyes closed, please focus on the physical heart. Our heart has been yearning, aching, thirsting to connect with us. If it works for you, put one hand or both hands over the heart and feel your heart. And initially, connect with the beat of the heart. the rhythm of the heart. And then, through the heart, listen to this beautiful revelation that came to the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, in a dream where spirit, divinity, God says to each one of us, I cannot be contained in the space of the earth. God says, I cannot be contained in the space of the heavens either. But I can be contained in the space of the pure, loving heart. The mystery of mysteries, that the space of the heart is actually infinite, boundless. And now, Islamic spiritual teachers say one of the greatest practices is focusing on the heart, where Allah resides, the God of humanity resides. The Quran says Allah is Zahir and Batin, outside of you and inside of you, in your heart. So focus on the heart unabashedly, with feeling, with a tone of voice. Tell your heart silently, I love you. If the word is difficult for you, please help me to love you. I love you. Please help me to love you. And you can continue. I am so grateful. Thank you. I am so grateful. Thank you. Or even more, you can add words. Please help me. I need help. I surrender to you. Talk to your heart. Talk to divinity in your heart. Again and again and again. The Quran says, to God belong the most beautiful names. I love you. Thank you. Please help me. Anything else you want to add, do it. And repeat it again and again and again and again. You can never overdo this. And as you keep saying those words, a most beautiful, divine vibration, filled with love, blessings, healing, is going from the tongue into the mouth, into the throat, into the chest, even deeper, into the heart, even deeper into what is called the hidden, and then into the hidden of the hidden, astonishingly loving us, blessing us, healing us. And now let go of anything, saying anything, just become very still. And those of you who know this chant can do it collectively, Bismillah. At the end of that, you can open your eyes. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. La ilaha illallah. La ilaha illallah. One more time. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. La ilaha illallah. La ilaha illallah. Brother Steve. One more flute music. Thank you so much, Brother Steve. Just becoming very still and quiet. And Sally Jo.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for being here. What a beautiful gathering, what beautiful music. Thank you, Brother Steve. And thank you, Bizgahan, for your beautiful Ilahi. We are at the point in our service where we pass the plate to see if we can get support for our beautiful programs and wonderful, beautiful historic building here that we care for, and that we, maybe Jamal, you can help me by starting that around. And these, you know, most of you know this is a volunteer community, and we do so much by virtue of people's willingness to help out and give of their time, their precious time. But we also pay bills. I can vouch for that, being the treasurer of this organization. And we do have bills. We keep the lights on in the heat, and we keep the water off the roof and all the good things that nature provides for us. We are stewards of this building, and as Reverend Karen talked about, this building has been standing for a long time, 1880, right, or 1889? 1890, okay. And that's a long life for a building, and we're very pleased that it's been able to serve us and serve so many communities for this long. And we thank you. And those of you who are online are welcome to go to our website, Interfaith Community Sanctuary.org. And there's a donate button at the top of the page, and that's where you can also contribute to this cause and to the fact that our live streaming, we have a beautiful, wonderful team of volunteers who do that work every Sunday, and they have equipment to use, and microphones and speakers and cameras, and so all this, we thank you for helping support this so that we can move forward in our endeavors. Thank you.
You know, by the way, Sally Jo is very modest. We had a visiting scholar from London, a very well-known scholar, and he said, "Why, God, Sally Jo is a Hafiz." Hafiz is a title, a very prestigious title, bestowed on people who memorize the Quran from beginning to end. But he said she's a Hafiz of the Quran in English.
Well, you put that on somebody else so you don't get charged for the untruth of that statement. Oh, thank you, Jamal, though. I do know a few verses in the Quran, and I will, let's see what comes up. I think for today, in our prayers and in our moments of silence and in our contemplation of Allah, I'm reminded of this verse, one of my favorite, one that I learned the first time I ever participated in Ramadan, which was 19 years ago. In the name of God, the infinitely compassionate and most merciful. O you who have attained to faith, seek help through steadfast patience and prayer. Behold, God is with those who patiently persevere. Amen.
Blow into it. Okay, you are now spiritually insured. Well done. And announcements? You want to make announcements?
So we do have many programs coming up. Every week we meet at various days and the days of the week and times of the day. Not just Sunday morning, although Sunday morning is when we gather and worship. And next Sunday, the fourth Sunday of the month, Reverend Karen will offer her service contemplating our theme, which you can see in your program guide. I think it's the back page, has more on our theme of the month and our theme of the year. Actually, the part of our work throughout the year is to have a spiritual discernment for the year, and it's divided into months and topics, and we try to follow that. And also, we have classes, we have workshops, we have groups who get together all different days of the week and evenings to study the different scriptures of the different religions. For example, Rich Ater has a spiritual education class where we explore different religions. Jamal has a class coming up, which I'm going to mention here in a minute. We have concerts. Blues Vespers is coming up. This is a Vespers service, an evening service where we welcome in the evening, and Jamal and his pastor friend Dave Brown host that, and there's music, blues music. And let me tell you, this is a rollicking place during a Blues Vespers because the music just reverberates throughout this beautiful sound machine we worship in. And we have some beautiful blues artists coming, and that is happening on April 16th, which is a Sunday, from 5:30 to 7. We haven't had a Blues Vespers since COVID. And when we had them before COVID, we had this place packed with people, just as we did during our recent Turkish music festival, which we have a community that really loves music here, and which evidenced by the music we have on Sunday mornings. And this is our chance to get together and really celebrate blues and also connect it with the evening Vespers. We also have other classes. We have the opposite of music and rollicking. We have a silent meditation on Thursday evenings at 7 o'clock where we just sit in silence. And George Ramirez leads that. And we have a small group, but everybody's welcome to come and meditate in a group with us. We also have many other offerings, a medicine circle of the Sisiwis Medicine Circle, which is a Native American gathering for women and children. And so go to our website and you can see all of the listings. If I were to keep you here another, it'd be another 15 minutes. But do explore our website because it does have the different classes and offerings and what time of day they are offered and so on. And many of them are online, by the way. You don't always have to show up in person. Oh, right. And is that every Monday now? Okay, and that's here in the sanctuary, and that's with the Mevlevi Order of America. Okay, and it's Monday evenings at what time? 7:30, with music, Sufi music, turning, the dervish turning, and you can observe, you can join, you can be in that prayerful space. That turning is not really dancing per se, it's a prayerful movement, it's prayer and movement. So yes, there are many, many varieties of ways to get involved, just as Steve was saying about the Charter for Compassion. And so we have lots of ways for you to start getting out. It's spring now, the days are getting longer, and you might find that you want to have more involvement. So we welcome that, thank you. And Jamal, I want to talk about your class a minute. So starting April 8th, Jamal has a class which is strictly online. His is a Zoom class. So it's a class that meets every Saturday morning for 6 weeks, starting April 8th through May 20th, every Saturday morning from 10 a.m. to noon. And we are working on and studying this book that he mentioned earlier, the Book of Joy. Now, we've gone through 6 weeks of this class, the first part, but we're continuing because, well, you know, Jamal and his stories, he didn't get all the way through the book in 6 weeks of teaching it through it. And he's bringing his Islamic and Eastern wisdom tradition insights into the insights already provided from the Buddhist perspective by the Dalai Lama and from the Christian perspective by Desmond Tutu. And you don't have to buy this book to be part of the class, but it's a wonderful investment if you do. There's also a video, documentary, which was produced at the same time the book came out, which is shorter, and you can watch it 100 times. You know, you can watch it for like $4.99, and there's several different ways you can get to it on the internet. And it is live footage of their conversations with each other that evolved into this book, which goes into even deeper, delves deeper into the topics they discuss. So these are very valuable materials, and Jamal has been using them to develop his class around that. So if you're interested in joining that class, let Jamal know or myself know. Most of you get emails from me at one time or another, so you probably have my email. And Jamal will also take your name and information if you're interested in signing up, because then we would send you the information about the link, and there is a small tuition charge for that class. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sally Jo. Now we really are coming to an end. So we'll say goodbye to all our wonderful friends online. Please know your presence has been a blessing, and we are deeply, deeply grateful for that. So just wave your hands, you know, put your